Do you feel capable of more, but that you're stuck because there's some difficult change that you just can't seem to get past? Change usually happens when the misery of staying the same outweighs the potential misery of changing. But we can help our minds and bodies get to that point a little bit faster by clearly identifying and envisioning what we want and why. We need that picture in our minds of what life could be, for that vision to be our motivation, our why to be our motivation to make those hard choices and completing the hard work that change takes. This is our first step in the Freedom Through Truth approach, Strategize. We start with really owning up to the fact that we want to change. Whether or not we know exactly what that change is, how we're going to accomplish it, or whether or not we actually believe that we can do it. And this applies to any behaviors or choices that keep us from achieving our goals. The beautiful part about making the choice to change, or at least fully recognizing your desire to change, is that after that, you really start to see that vision of probably who you always thought you could be starts to become a real possibility. So take some time to get really clear on what you want, who you want to be, what will those changes get you in life, and what's preventing you from making those changes. There's an exchange in one of my favorite shows, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where the highly organized character, Detective Amy Santiago, says to the very chill Detective Rosa Diaz, "How do you remember to get stuff done?" And she says, "I just forget stuff like a cool person." Well, that may make her cool, but it doesn't make her very productive or necessarily able to achieve her goals and dreams. So you have your vision and your why from strategizing. Now you need a plan and a clear method for implementing your plan. Most of us know the basics of taking our strategy and our vision and breaking that down into our specific goals and our specific next steps, and creating a timeline to achieve those steps. So I first want you to do that. Think of the longest time frame that you want to set your goals for, and then start to break it down from there. So start at 20 years to 10 years to 5 years, then start to set your specific plans and goals for 1 year. Then break it down to a month, to a week, and even to a day. But more importantly, you need a tracking system to document that plan and your next steps, and to ensure that you are implementing those steps and tracking your progress. When will you do the steps? How will you know what you're supposed to do and when? How will you track your progress? How will you track that you've achieved what you set out to? How will you hold yourself accountable to taking those next steps in your plan? A lot of people still use hard copy planners and calendars. There's lots of tech tools out there, from the basics of using Google and Microsoft Suite with their integrated email and calendar and tasks functions, and how those integrate with the other apps that we use, to project management software like Asana or Zoho or Project Libre. And there's probably a whole host of other apps and tech tools out there that I don't even know about. I'm sure that most of us have heard that writing down your goals is key to success, but so is writing down your plan to achieve those goals. I see people all the time who want to visualize and plan, but get stuck when it's time to actually do the work. I see all too often that people set great plans, but then just go about business as usual. It seems like they think things are going to change just because they made a plan. They don't seem to realize that they now need to execute the strategy that they set. It doesn't happen by magic. It happens because we make it happen. How we execute our work is the third phase in the Freedom Through Truth approach, and where I see a lot of people get stuck. Most of our time should be spent in this stage of implementing. We don't want to get caught up in the planning when it's time to switch to the doing, and we also don't want to use planning as a procrastination tool. So we get to work, we take the first step, we do the work. You've got your organized plan, now do it. Taking one step at a time. If you find yourself hesitating to even start, try the 5-minute rule. Just give yourself 5 minutes to at least work on that next step, and you will be amazed at the momentum that you get and how the fear that you have starts to be replaced by confidence. I will be sharing more tools and resources and strategies on how to be productive on my channel, so be sure to subscribe to learn more. Applying the changes that I'm going to share with you is where I really started to take off and succeeding in making the changes that I set out to, and my growth became exponential. We have to evaluate our efforts and then incorporate that insight back into our next steps. This is where we get the real value add, and therefore the most increases in growth and the most change, because it's where the learning is recognized and the implementation of that learning takes place in order to improve. I achieved most of this through using one of the tools in the evaluate phase called the effort inventory. It's where we look at the facts and our fears surrounding our strategy and actions so far. So facts first. What are the facts? What is true about the situation? What do you know? What don't you know? What information do you still need? And of that truth that you've just written down, what do you control and what don't you control? Now to your fears. Write out exactly and honestly what you're afraid of. Then write out why you're afraid of it. It could be the unknown, it could be change, it could be fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of pain, fear of what other people think, fear of not being able, fear of others preventing us, fear of getting hurt. Just writing it down and putting it out there releases some of its power. I'm going to be doing an in-depth video on this effort inventory, so please subscribe to be notified when I release that. The evaluate phases and the next one that I'm going to share with you, the adapt phase, are the ones in the freedom through truth approach that I see most people miss out on, and that is a huge missed opportunity because this is valuable information. This is your intellectual property. It is unique to you because it is your own experience. So take the time to formalize that valuable information that you have learned and incorporate it back into your strategy and your execution so that you can continue to grow. Stop just doing things over and over in the hopes that you may eventually achieve the result that you set out to, or expecting things to change when you don't even actually know what it is that needs to change. You have to use the information that you gained during that evaluate phase. This is the final step in the freedom through truth approach. This is where we adapt, where we bring it full circle, utilizing our insights from that last evaluate phase and putting it back into our strategy and our execution. The lessons learned are your intellectual property. Use them to your advantage. Don't let them go to waste because the pressure to just keep bulldozing forward is so strong, or because it might be too difficult to look at the past. It'll take some trial and error at first, but the more you do this, the more that information is going to get incorporated into your mental muscle memory, and the changes that you are working to make are going to start to become second nature. Once that starts to happen, that's where you see that huge potential for growth. Check out my other videos and subscribe to be notified as I share more strategies on how to accelerate your growth.